Thank you, David. Well, thank you all for coming. We weren't sure when we said we're challenging the system, whether anybody would be with us. But we're pleased that a lot of folks feel like we do. And if when you leave, you don't need to know who you are when you get home, please leave your name tag in the bowl outside the door on the table.
You can have the paper, we'll just take the plastic and recycle it.
And if you don't need the plastic holders, we would appreciate that. We'll be sure to give you one next year. A question about the room. We have a lot of thoughts about whether we want to open it up or what. But the feedback I've gotten from the people that work and sit in the back is they like it open. And is it comfortable with everybody with that? Yeah. You know, the downer is we don't have a wall to put the pictures and the displays, but we'll find some way to work that. But if you like this open, we like it open. I guess David raised a question there, a challenge for himself and Charles, and that is there seems to be a pedestal missing a statue in Marion Square. And it seems that the people in Charleston are having a problem figuring out what kind of statue they could put in Marion Square. And to a dumb fire pilot, it seems pretty simple. The square is called Marion Square. Why don't we put Marion statue on that pedestal? Isn't that Is that a new thought? Yeah. So I know that Charles doesn't have much more on his plate, and I know that David doesn't have much on his plate. But you know, just to give him something to think about. Elwood and I were talking about some of the numbers game that the folks led by those in California seem to like to play with the China virus. And he said he would be glad to give you 5 or 10 minutes of what he has seen as from the medical side of it, as to how they play with the numbers and what his feeling is on it. If you would like to stay, we will be glad to stay with you. Would you like to have Elwood for a couple minutes? Would you do that, Elwood?
I just want to know.
Okay, and thank you for all the compliments that you said about the work that we've done, but we couldn't do it if you didn't come, and we didn't have all these great presenters, so we thank you very much.
Thank you. It's going to take years to put all this information together about the coronavirus. It took years to figure out the swine flu back in 2010, 2011. I say what we do know, the swine flu, after a couple of years, was literally found its way into 63 million Americans. Now, that's why I said it kind of a ubiquitous statement. They found their way into 63 million Americans. So right now we have the coronavirus, and by last count, it's about 220,000 deaths. But if you look at that closely, and the CDC looks at it closely, apparently, what is it, 6 or 7% they say died of the coronavirus, and the other 94% died with it. Now, again, nobody wants to talk about death, but every year, 3 million people in the United States die of all causes, roughly maybe 2.9 million people die every year in the United States. And if you divide that by 12, it comes to about 260,000 people deaths per month. So the morticians stay pretty busy. There's an effort to break down, forget the virus for a second, how many people die of heart failure. Heart failure is a killer. Heart disease is not necessarily a killer unless it puts you into a failing situation. So heart failure is a killer. Cancer and pulmonary disease, COPD, emphysema, and other diseases, trauma, suicides, etc. And these all have their own numbers. What I'm carrying in my head is about heart disease, maybe 600,000 people with heart failure die every year. Something like cancer, similar, 600,000 people die every year from cancer, terminal cancer. Emphysema, maybe 300,000 die every year. So these are definite numbers. You can get a better idea if you look on the internet to find out. So I just hope that through all this that the media doesn't scare us to death. On the other hand, we have to be careful what we do and practice all this social distancing and masks and so forth. And we'll find out what works sooner or later. But I just hope the reporting is accurate. In other words, people don't die of two things necessarily. If the person died of heart failure and just happened to be touched by coronavirus before he or she died, how do we really relate that to all the statistics and whether we're doing the right thing or the wrong thing? It's scary when you hear 6,000 people came down with coronavirus. Well, they didn't really come down with it. I suspect there is an increase because of testing. I mean, a couple of weeks ago, I decided I'm just going to get tested, and it's really easy. You just drive through, and they stick a swab in your nose, and I was negative, and I didn't have any symptoms. I just want to see what all the hype was about. But I hope that through all this, we have truthful reporting that did they die of coronavirus, or did they just simply die with it? And I guess some of y'all may have some objections to some of the things I say, but the most important thing is to get a handle on the true statistics and maybe try to convince the media not to scare us so much. I know President Trump got a kick in the seat about saying he didn't want to scare people, he didn't want to alarm people. Well, maybe there's some truth in that. I mean, Franklin D. Roosevelt didn't want to scare people about the coming World War II. So sometimes it's the executive's right and perhaps purpose to maybe prevent a panic. I'm not sure how that figures out, but I think overall, I mean, again, I'm trying to stay away from the political issues. I think he's been very responsive for what most people think. He had set that commission up with Mike Pence, and they ran that every day for like 2 or 3 months, it seemed like. And when Marion needed respirators, he set up the Wartime Act and started building them and manufacturing. Now we have 2 million, they're shipped from overseas. So again, how that sorts out, I don't really know. I think this is probably, you hear so much because it is a political year, it's a campaign year, and people are going to speak on both sides of the issue. But I guess this will all come to an end, I hope, when the vaccine is made available. And what I read in the Wall Street Journal recently, and I'll try to paraphrase it, it looks like that, of course, you know, viruses are hard to pin down and make vaccines for. Bacteria are big items. You can see them under the microscope. They're blue, red, whatever. It's hard, it's easy to get a vaccine for a bacteria. We have it all in diphtheria, tetanus, pertussis. Now everybody in this room has been inoculated as a child later on about various bacterial entities. But along come the viruses. And the viruses have been an enigma for many years. How to pin them down, how to look at them, how to find them. They tend to be mutative. They seem to be smarter than bacteria for some reason. For some reason, they can mutate through a series of years and come back with a vengeance. What I'm hearing right now from Pfizer Laboratories, I read this in the paper, and there may be other things. There are 4 or 5 pharmaceutical industry companies that are putting together vaccines. Pfizer probably has the leading one right now. That's what I hear about. And it's in what they call phase 3 trials. And they have phase 1, 2, 3. I guess they put it on test animals and see if there's any reactions and so forth. But eventually they have to get up to human beings. And I think I hear 55, 60,000 Americans who have volunteered to be test guinea pigs, if you wish, to take the vaccine and see if over the next few months they don't get the virus. Whether or not, I'm just curious, if they get the vaccine, I don't know if they would expose themselves to a virus to see if they got it or not. That might be an interesting case, because that would prove pretty quick. If you're going to be a volunteer, let's go the whole way. But again, that's off the record. I guess they basically just inoculate a bunch of people and let them live a normal life with or without a mask, with or without other activities, and just see how they do. Apparently that's showing promise. The phase 3 from Pfizer is showing promise. Eli Lilly was putting out a drug, but it had a couple side effects, so they shut it down, which is the way you're supposed to do it when you do prospective, randomized, double-blind studies of everything. If a certain number of people have a complication, then you've got to break the code, what they say, the code, and see if the complication came from somebody getting placebo. Every medicine you've ever taken in this world has been produced by the Food and Drug Administration, the FDA. Every medicine had to stand up to placebo. Placebo, believe it or not, has a 25% curative effect. Now, that's not placebo itself, that's your own God-given immunological system. And if you don't have that, you're not going to live very long on this earth, or you're going to become these rare people called bubble boys or bubble children, where they live in a completely sterile environment. But as far as the immunological system, that's the best thing you got going for yourself. And to help that along, then we want to try to find a vaccine. The vaccines are on their way, from what I understand. Pfizer said that its phase 3 trials work okay with no side effects. Back on the placebo, every medicine you take is always measured against the placebo effect. For some reason, the psyche of the human body thinks that if you're given a red pill for disease, you might get better. Well, you're getting better because of your own body, not because of the placebo. But anyway, the vaccines are coming, and it looks like that if this one pans out, or others may pan out, then they'll mass produce it, and I've heard maybe around January or so, they might declare it worthwhile. The efficacy has to be something around 60 to 90%. Placebo works 25% of the time, almost uniform. So if something is better than 60 to 90%, it's probably going to be a drug that is going to be useful and used on another trial with patients and see how that goes. So the word I've heard is maybe turn it loose in December or January. Turn it loose quicker for what they call compassionate use. Again, that's another issue. Before a drug is not quite ready to release with all the protective and safety measures and so forth, for people that really need it, it's showing promise in the trials. It's showing promise, but there might be a couple little quirks about it that haven't worked out. But if somebody's desperate to try a new type of chemotherapeutic drug, or they're at their wits' end, or can't go any further without the attempt, then you can sign a waiver to take a compassionate use drug, and they're open, and the pharmaceutical companies are good about that. You don't hear about it much unless it pertains to you. But if these phase 3 trials go all right and the vaccines are proved effective, 60 to 90% effective, which is pretty good, better than placebo, then they might have, I heard 10 million doses may be ready by January or February. I heard the outlandish number of maybe 100 million doses by July. Now, I'd have to go back and find that, but I did hear that. So that's how it stands. I think honestly, when the vaccines are made, then it will change this society back to hopefully a normal situation. The coronavirus is not going to go away. It's always going to be. It's been here since 1950. If you look at the immunological journals, it's been around for 75 years already. And why it took a vengeance this time, I'm not sure. Maybe, well, the rumors are maybe it was changed in some format in Wuhan, which I don't know.